This is Coffee with Kelly, a dynamic podcast that's dedicated to driving positive change in school safety. I'm your host, Ethan Woodman, Product Marketing Specialist for Crisis Go, and I'm joined by my esteemed colleague, Kelly Moore, Senior School Safety Specialist for Crisis Go. Our mission is to empower you with essential knowledge, tools, and inspiration required to foster a safer and more secure school environment. We hope this podcast will be the catalyst for transformation in your schools. Join us as we continue to dive into the world of school safety. All right. Good morning, Kelly.
Morning. It is, in fact, still morning. The last one we had to do it in the afternoon.
Yeah.
It is, in fact, morning when we're doing this.
Yeah.
At least morning when we're starting it. What do we got today?
Oh, man. What, you want me to give you an article? Or do you want to just
If you got one. If you got one.
Yeah.
If not, let's...
I always got articles. I got a whole plethora of them.
Pick one.
So there's some uproar in Florida where apparently this guy's son is having to cross a busy 4-lane road without traffic control when he's doing a school drop-off and school pickup. Like, why are we having kids go across a 4-lane road?
Do you remember the video game Frogger?
That's what I'm imagining. My son says this part of his ride home is the scariest because he has to cross a busy 4-lane road with no one helping with traffic.
How old is this kid?
I haven't seen it yet. A car trying to avoid traffic swerved into an oncoming lane and almost hit my son. Wow.
So
that's
here's
great. Let's throw your kids into real life Frogger every time they go to school.
So
like,
let me put this into context. I know exactly what you just told me about this, but it brings up the questions and the thoughts of who's responsible for our safety? Who's responsible for Ethan's safety?
Ethan
is. If it's dangerous crossing a 4-lane busy road at a point where there are no traffic controls, there's no stoplights, there's no whatevers, you shouldn't be crossing there. In fact, it's probably illegal to cross there.
Yeah, that's true. It's probably jaywalking.
I had this, and I know we talked about this early. I had this friend of mine, actually he's more of an associate than a friend. Our kids played water polo.
I remember this story already.
Yep.
I can tell I've talked to you too much.
And
I already know what you're going to say.
So he gives me a call, and he says, "Hey, I was trying to cross the street in a crosswalk, and a deputy ran by me and didn't even slow down. And what bothered me the most was not that he didn't slow down or stop as he's required to. It was that when he did so, he was on his phone texting at the time." And I asked, first question, do you know who the deputy was? Can you identify him so I can address him directly? And he goes, no, it just happened so quick, I couldn't do it. I said, okay. So I will put out some information reminding everybody that it's illegal to text and drive at the same time, even for deputies. Being distracted is not good. And he said, yeah, but he didn't stop. And I said, I can't. I don't have anyone to go after. No. I can look and say, of these 20 deputies that I have working, and as soon as I ask, which one of you guys ran through the crosswalk up on the road, you think anyone is going to say anything? Like, oh, that was me. Okay. No. So I said, I can remind them about everything and do that. And he said, I'm just lucky I didn't do it. I says, but you looked, right? And he said, yeah. And I said, actually, his name's Jim. It's not just some made-up name. I said, Jim, you understand that you're responsible for your safety. And he got upset with me. And he says, what do you mean? That deputy is required. And I said, he is. But you and I aren't having this conversation if you didn't look. You're required to look. You can't enter that sidewalk as the car is approaching and maybe at a distance that is too short for him to respond in time.
The amount of
Right.
I can tell you, so there's a town right attached to ours, and there's a little town you drive through, and there's like at least 4 crosswalks in the span of maybe 100 yards. And there's like cars on both sides, and so the crosswalk, goes all
Across
around them, right? And sometimes you got people that are coming up in the crosswalk and you can't see them because the car's hiding them.
that,
And
or
even if I'm going 20 miles an hour, and sometimes these people will step out and they'll be
well,
doing this.
let me ask you this: who has the right of way in a crosswalk?
I mean, a pedestrian?
Pedestrians do.
Yeah.
They don't have the right to occupy that space under any condition. Once they're in the crosswalk, they have the right of way. But you can't enter the crosswalk and make some sort of dangerous circumstance. The other thing is if there's traffic control, you don't get to just run in to the crosswalk when a car has, you're subject to all of those same traffic controls.
Yeah.
So if you have a stop sign, you have to stop as a pedestrian. You don't get to say, that's my crosswalk, and just dart out like you own the world.
Entitled.
Right. But I've had it happen to me. I had somebody who was,
Oh man.
I let a bunch of people go through, and it was my turn to go. And then I see him coming running, and he yells at me. I'm already in the crosswalk. That didn't end well for him. But the fact is, it's not an absolute right to it. We call it right of way, but it's because you're already there. You can't enter it and demand that traffic stop after they've already started. And he goes, well, I go, Jim, ultimately you're responsible for your safety. So don't enter that crosswalk if it's dangerous. I said, we're not having this conversation if you had proceeded. Really, ultimately, it's your responsibility to keep yourself safe.
The fact that he did have enough time to notice that this guy was on his cell phone. So you could have made the argument of like, if you see someone on their phone, you can kind of make the guess like, hey, what are my chances that this guy actually sees me? Maybe I shouldn't go across.
Well, but I think in Jim's defense is that he saw it as the cars passing him. It wasn't like he looked down and saw.
Sure. Okay. All right.
I think he's seeing a deputy coming and realizing, hey, he's not slowing down at all. And then, oh, by the way, he has a phone in his face and he's texting, right?
Gotcha.
I don't think.
Okay.
But it does us no good if you demand right away and you get hit.
Yeah.
Right? So
yeah,
we're responsible. And the reason I'm saying that is because if it's dangerous, tell your kid not to cross there.
Maybe as a parent, don't allow your kid to run across a 4-lane road.
Right. And if there's no traffic control there, there's likely a reason for that.
Right.
Maybe there should be, and he needs to address that with his city or county government, right?
It's like,
or state government, depending on
if that's a situation, I'm going to do everything in my power as a parent to just drop my kid off at the front door of the school, because my job as a parent is to protect my child until I've given that responsibility to someone else.
Yeah, you're still responsible. Anyway,
yeah.
But that being said, and I get there are different circumstances, and we don't know all of the circumstances that this person lives in. Go down to where there are traffic controls, or drop your kid off at school.
Yeah, it's pretty easy fix.
Right. And it is your responsibility to get your kid to school safe. I know there's expectations that our kids should be able to get to school safely. What can you do to help that? We don't get to just say, well, I guess we can. It's because it's in an article somewhere. It's some post somewhere saying I shouldn't be expected to keep my kid safe while he's crossing a 4-lane road, dodging cars like a Frogger video game.
Crazy.
And not take some action on my own, whether that action is get somebody there to help my child cross. I help them cross. I tell them you should run down to the corner where there are traffic controls and walk around like you're supposed to, like the traffic engineers had designed you to do, not to, because ultimately, and here's the danger, right? The danger is that the engineers designed that road for 45-mile-an-hour traffic or whatever that traffic is in that area, not for them to stop in that area. Even if it's designated as a school zone and you have to decrease to like 25 miles an hour, that's so that you can slow down to stop in case something happens, because kids dart out, there's vehicles blocking vision, so forth.
Yeah.
But it's not meant for you to stop when some kid, right? We have to take some responsibility ourselves. Train your kid not to do that. If you're going to still allow him to do that, tell him to understand you're not just checking the first traffic lane, you got to check all 4. Don't go until it's safe to do so. Hope the little 4th grader can figure that out, I guess. People have this sort of entitled, and I get it, entitlement of, you are here to make sure that my kid is safe. That's not the case. You are responsible for that. And you need to take actions, whether it's have somebody else correct the problem, or you need to figure out how to get your kid to school safely. Put them on a bus, even if that bus picks up on one side and has to go on a route for an hour and drop them off at the other side. I don't care, but figure it out. And it's not somebody else's responsibility to figure that out. It's for you to figure out as a parent, how do I do this, right? There are adults that shouldn't be crossing 4-lane roads, but yet you're telling your kid to do it. That's the only place you can cross. Do it. And then you're telling everyone else in the world, watch out, my kid's running across the street.
Yeah, and
that makes a lot of sense.
It's not my responsibility.
It's everyone else's. It's silly. But who am I?
Man. Well,
what else we got today?
So to segue off responsibility.
Good one.
See? Yeah.
That's a good one.
Let's talk about the role or responsibilities of local, state, and federal emergency managers.
In what?
In school safety.
Or getting that kid across the 4-lane highway.
So let's talk about, I'm trying to figure out where I want to start.
Do you know what an emergency management agency is? Do you know what they do?
Not to a certain granular detail, I guess. I don't.
All right.
I don't know. Do you tell me, Kelly? I'm gonna play dumb. That's a good.
Good.
Comfortable
let's go there
for me.
Let's go there. Many people call them different things. Offices of emergency services, emergency management offices, emergency management agencies. Some people might call them county emergency managers, what have you. There's all different kinds of names. Just like there are different kinds of police officers, there's different kinds of sheriffs, all kinds of, they run to the gamut, right? We have that with these agencies. That being said, generally speaking, most of these emergency management agencies, which is what we'll go with as the generic term, they are fairly standardized in how they do things. The position and the creation of these offices really came to light after Katrina. When FEMA was developed and we had to have all of these standardized ways to respond. State incident management, incident command systems, national incident management systems, NIMS, SIMS, and ICS. So they're all very similar. And you could say they're about as standardized as you can get, with still allowing people to do what it is they're charged with. And what that means is, and here's what they're charged with: identifying the hazards and developing plans to address those hazards. So when we talk about all hazards, that's what they do at their level, at a regional level, state level, a county level. Some cities have their own offices of emergency management. Although, in order for a city to do that, they have to be of a certain size. They have to have the resources, right?
That was going to be my other question is like, would you find that more often in a rural, kind of isolated town or city, or is it more likely that you're going to have a city, a bigger city, have their own thing? Because like the isolated one might be so unique that they would need their own.
So
You know what I'm saying?
I'm gonna take a stab here, but I don't know this to be fact. I believe it is, but I'm not 100% on this. I believe at a minimum, every county in the United States has an office of emergency management, has an emergency management agency.
That's quite a bit.
They're generally part of the county government, but they're connected to the state through regions. So states, and I'll give you an example. In California, I believe there's 7 regions. I forget. There's 7 or 8. I forget what the actual number is, because we were part, in where I worked, we were part of a county, or a part of a region 1, that includes Santa Barbara, Ventura, Los Angeles, Orange County, maybe San Bernardino County. Anyway, I forget exactly how it was laid out. But at some point, they separated. And there was a Region 1 and a Region 1A. So, and I was part of Region 1A, which included Ventura County, Santa Barbara County, and San Luis Obispo County. But each of those counties had their own office. Every county in the state of California, all 58 counties, has their own office of emergency management. Some cities had some version of an actual office of emergency management. Many cities have something similar, but they might call it an emergency operations center. And that's not technically the same. The Emergency Operations Center, EOC, you've heard that term a little bit, is where an incident is managed. So a city might say, oh, we have an emergency operations center that they would open up if there was a large scale incident within their jurisdiction. An Office of Emergency Management is a full-time office that identifies hazards, identifies gaps, identifies the partners they need to run this. And they're the ones that bring all those partners together and say, okay, this is how we're going to do it. And they plan, they exercise, they drill, they do all of that stuff. But they're not telling people at the street level, the incident level, this is how you have to do it. So they're not telling the cops saying you have to do it this way. They're getting an understanding of what the cops need and how they're going to respond to this. And then they provide support to that operation if it's needed. So again, like in the state of California, I have an incident, I start addressing the incident, and I need additional resources. California's a little bit different. I can call my own law enforcement resources to a point, but then I have to start ramping up. If it becomes a county-wide incident or impacts 2 or 3 different locations, then the county opens up their EOC, and then they start divvying out resources, because there's going to be a competition for those resources. So they decide, I decide what I need. They decide what the priority is for the county and who gets those first. They're the ones that sort of manage all that, but they're not actually responding to. They're not sending deputies out. They're not sending fire guys out. The deputies are doing that. The cops are doing that. The fire guys are doing that. And they're all addressing that. But they can manage those incidents beforehand, right? So that's what they do. Now, the next question I think you should ask is what do they have to do? If we're not talking about response, what role do they play in
School safety
school safety?
specifically. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess so I think when most people think about a responding agency in terms of school safety, a lot of people are probably thinking of that responding officer or the fire department. So if those are the ones responding, then what role specifically is an emergency manager? Yeah, what's their part?
Right.
Why do we need them?
So, yeah, why do we need those guys? So, great question. One of the biggest gaps we see in our school safety and how it's implemented?
I'm gonna
That might
say
not get you to exactly where I want you to go, but I'll correct you if you're
maybe
wrong. Maybe.
I'll try to take an educational guess. I'm gonna say like communication or coordination with responders in a preventative sense. Like there's usually a lack of prior communication planning with those first responders.
You are so close.
So close.
So close. It's a lot of what you're saying is correct. The piece that's missing is the prior relationship and trust with those agencies.
Mm,
And we've talked about this before, and I'm going to apologize to everyone because I should have been discussing this much sooner. Is the reason
yeah.
I'm gonna. It just it wasn't something I was thinking about until recently. But the relationships that are built before an incident occurs, almost 100% have a huge impact on how successful you are should you need to activate your plan.
Oh yeah.
Having a relationship with who's coming to help you when you activate the plan,
Hmm.
right? So,
And I've talked to a few of our customers, and I can tell right off the bat, and they're like, hey, officer so and so came over, and they had helped us with a drill or whatever. We invite our responding agencies, and this is how the drill went. Blah blah blah, and it's like, wow, that seemed like it kind of just went smoothly, and it's a huge difference. I can't imagine how you would do a drill that would need a responding agency and then not having a relationship with them prior. I don't see how that would go very well.
it's because we've been conditioned to response
Mm,
and we've been conditioned to call 911 in response because at that moment, generally speaking, we don't care who shows up. I have a problem, you come help me with it. Right?
yeah.
That's been the way our society has worked for years and years and years. Almost 250 years. But you've always asked for help when you needed help.
Mm,
But generally speaking, that's when Ethan needs help. That's when Kelly needs help. Not when my organization has a complex situation that is actively trying to eliminate people.
mm,
And there's so many complexities because we're dealing with the protection in a very dynamic situation of oftentimes thousands of people, right? And even if you have a school of 300 kids, which is pretty typical size school, you have at least double that in parents. Now you just went from 300 to 1500, right? If I'm doing or 900, I guess. And then you have all the other community influences as well. But it's understanding those relationships and knowing how difficult it is to transition from the initiation to the response to the management to the recovery, and how much better we have talked about this quite a bit is that initial response will be handled generally speaking, pretty quickly.
Yeah.
It's the management of that incident that can last for days. And part of that time frame, it can be over very quickly, or it could be managed for literally days, months, depending on the type of the incident that you have. And the need to have relationships prior to eliminates trying to develop those relationships and those trust issues and alleviate them while literally shots are being fired.
Yeah.
Right?
Under stress.
So if we have that relationship, if we have a good relationship working prior to, and everyone understands exactly who's going to do what, when, and why, and who's responsible, who has a legal authority, who has a moral authority or obligation, and what those processes are, we can just look and go, okay, who's doing this? Oh, that's Kevin. Kevin, you're going to do that. Ethan, you're going to do this. You got it? Yep. You know what to do? Yep. I don't have to sit there and say, okay, I need a perimeter here, 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 and here. I just need to go to Ethan, who's my dude who understands this. And I said, I need a solid perimeter. Got it. Thanks, Commander. Thanks. Hop to it. Right? I don't need to explain what a perimeter is. If I have to go into a school and tell somebody I need a perimeter, and I have to explain to them what that perimeter looks like and why.
Too much time.
It can't just be on the front of the building, right? So
how far out do you want the perimeter?
That's right. But if somebody understands perimeters and we've already established what that is, they can look at it and say, okay, and they can figure out what that perimeter looks like without me explaining it to them, right? I don't need somebody standing at each gate. I need people who can't access the area in which I need to get my resources into, right? And I also have to have somewhat of an inner perimeter to contain it from going and spilling out into another area, right? So, but I don't want to explain that every time I need a perimeter. People understand. If I've trained them properly, they understand. And we've talked about unified command. So all of these different things have relationships. I did a school training session presentation over the summer in Michigan. And I told everybody, if you have any incident of any significance, you should be implementing unified command. Law enforcement guy in the back says, that never works. And I say, how do you think I responded to him?
You probably said it worked for me.
Said, it's because you haven't practiced it. It's because you haven't established who's got what, who's doing what, when.
Perfect practice makes perfect.
Ish, right?
You can't practice something incorrectly and then expect it to.
But you can't not practice it.
Yeah,
which is what most people are doing.
Yes,
they're just saying unified. We know what unified command is. Okay, I know what a football game is.
Yeah,
I don't know how to practice it. I don't know how somebody's supposed to run a play unless I practice it. I don't know why that guy got called a penalty unless somebody tells me why that guy did what he did and he's not supposed to do it. So the response is, you can't just say it doesn't work. You have to practice it until it does work. And you can't just say, I went to ICS, whatever, 300, and where they talked about unified command, and I understand what unified command is. You saw a football game. Now go coach it. I can't coach it. I don't know. I have, in a football game, there's a chain of command. You know what it is? They have a unified response, a unified command within the football game.
Yeah, you've got like the head coach, defense,
offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, special teams coordinator.
Yeah.
They all know what they're supposed to do when. You know why? Because they practice it.
Yeah,
they don't just go off and one time they say, okay, we have the all three aspects of a football team, offense, defense, and special teams, and say, I'm not going to tell you what we're going to do. We're just going to go in and do whatever we think we should do. That's the issue. That's the biggest issue. So then you go back to the original question of what is the role of the emergency management agencies? That is primarily to bring these people together. So part of their fundamental charge is to understand, identify all hazards and threats that may impact this community.
It's a big role.
That is, determine the prevention mitigation. How are we going to train this, drill this, exercise this? Who's responsible for all of this stuff? Are there MOUs that have to be signed? Memorandums of understanding. Are there contracts that need to be signed? Are there mutual aid agreements that need to be signed? Who's responsible for security? Who's responsible for transporting patients and how are we tracking them? All of those aspects. Are they sitting there saying, police department, you're responsible for this? Nope. They're asking a question. Who's responsible for this? And police department says, I am. Okay, what are you going to do? This is what I'm going to do.
It's like they're a project manager in an organization. It's very similar, right? Let's say you've got a product launch or something, and you have your training team, you have your product team, you've got your marketing team, whatever. You got your
I would actually elevate it a little bit higher than that. In
Okay.
that they do have, if you look at because they have a structure too, right? So they have a planning director, mitigation, prevention manager. Some of these things roles might seem familiar to you.
Yeah.
A planning, a finance director.
Mm.
So they have all of these logistics, those types of procurement, some people call it, but they have all of these functions and they're responsible for all of those things. But that emergency management agency is more like a chief operating officer or a general manager, depending on what you call them in organizations.
Okay.
Where they sit back and say, here's our problem. Let's figure out how to solve it. And they bring everyone to the table. They bring your project manager. What's the implementation look like? How do we stop this from happening? And if we can't stop it from happening, what do we need to respond to it? And ask all of those questions. Most of these managers are detailed oriented and they ask, you sit back and you go, are you kidding me? That would never happen. I think we actually talked about that in the last podcast. But that's their job. That's their role.
Yeah, you have to be the one to think of those outliers, because by happenstance that you run into that outlier and then you don't have a plan for the extreme, like
what you believe is impossible,
suck.
you're like, there ain't no way. And it does. It happens.
Yeah.
We talked about it. But here's the reason this is the responsibility and the role of the emergency management agencies. They don't have plans for a bar fight on Main Street because it doesn't impact the entire community. And I'll take it one step further. If you had a gang fight and they started shooting in a bar, so we'll bring it back to the bar fight, and there were 5 or 6 people that lost their lives as a result, you're not going to involve the emergency managers because it doesn't impact the entire community. But what happens when you have a shooting at a school, an act of violence at a school? It impacts the entire community, directly or indirectly. I'll give you an example. And I was talking to our Jim Spicuzza, the other day and trying to explain it to him. And I said, okay, this is what happened to us. And I forget exactly which emergency it was, but I remember it distinctly. It was either a fire or one of our floods. And we went through a period of several years where we had a major incident, usually more than one every year. Fire season, floods, those types of things. I said, we didn't necessarily always have an office of emergency management, But we just went out and we just did it, and we just kind of figured it out. But it took us a lot longer. Then we started having an official Office of Emergency Management, and we still continued kind of to do it the other way. Just respond. You do this. You're responsible for cop stuff. You're responsible for fire rescue stuff, that kind of stuff. But then we started managing, and at one point, there was something that a school district, and I forget which school district, I was a lieutenant at the time, called and said, hey, the 101, which runs all the way from Los Angeles all the way up through California to the Oregon border and beyond, along the coast. It's one of two ways that you can get from Los Angeles north.
Okay.
And it was closed. The school district says, hey, we can't get our teachers and our educators and our administrators to work. And everyone looked at it and said, why aren't they here? Why aren't they part of this? So from that point forward, we invited them in so that they could be part of that discussion. And there were a couple of these where then after we invited the primary school that was calling, the largest district there, or the largest district that was impacted, and everyone else started, we said, wait a second. We need a liaison. We had a school liaison that came in from the county Office of Education. They came in and then they disseminated all of the information. But I wasn't in school safety, so I didn't say, hey, what are you guys doing with this? What are you guys doing with this? Right now, we have these relationships that have, one, that are suffering. They're misguided because the school believes if I have an SRO in my school district or in my school, I have a relationship with the sheriff's office. And that's not true. You have a relationship with that deputy. He has a relationship with the rest of the department. You don't have a relationship. And we've talked about the role of an SRO within emergency, and it's not to be your safety person. It's a response role. It's a requirement of the management that you have the authority to do and make decisions, take actions and make decisions. And in law enforcement, it's a very strict chain of command. And unless you are specifically trained or have the specific authority to do something, you can't do it. A SRO, relatively low, can't order up 250 cops.
No.
Right? So it's a little bit different in the fire side, but they specifically train and certify their people to make those decisions. So they say in ICS, rank doesn't matter. That's true in the fire side. That's true in the emergency management side. Not true in the law enforcement side. You need somebody that the decisions they could make were at their level, and if they needed another authority, they had to call somebody who had that authority through that chain of command. That takes time if you don't understand that. If you need a commander there to make that kind of decision, you need to tell somebody, we're deep in it. I need command staff here. He can do that. He or she could do that. Right?
Yeah.
So it's just one of those things that you have to understand that. I heard this just the other day, and this was something that was being said to me, but it really was a good description of emergency management. And we'll kind of leave it with this because I think this is where we need to go with it. Somebody relayed to me that they were talking to an emergency manager about bringing me in to talk with him. And he says, I have no authority over the cops and the fire departments and the ambulances and the hospitals, but I can make them come sit at the table. And that is the role. They own the piece where people will naturally create and foster and nurture these relationships. Because the more you're sitting at that table, the more you're talking to people, the more you understand their capabilities, their responsibilities, their roles, who's going to do what they say. Who's going to be that? Who are you going to trust? And when I call that, or press that button, and you come running, and I look across the hallway and I see Ethan. Ethan knows me. I know Ethan. I don't have to say, "Hi, I'm Kelly. Hi, I'm Ethan. Nice to meet you. What do
are
you
you doing
do?
here?
Why? What do you want me to do?" Don't have. That's already been established.
You just kind of look at each other, give a little head nod, and you go.
Yep. Right. So that's there are things that we can do much better. And the aha moment for me was this is we are 27 years past Columbine in a few short months.
Yeah.
27 years. And I've said this. If I've said it once, I've said it 100 times on the podcast that we've done. And we haven't figured it out. People are they're all trying to figure it out on their own and trying to figure out how it impacts me individually. We have the cops over here trying to figure it out. We have the fire guys trying to figure it out. We have the ambulance guys trying to figure it out. We have the schools trying to figure it out. That's why we haven't figured it out. That's why we haven't figured it out. We've figured everything else out since Katrina, wildfires. We've talked about evacuations and all of these things. That's why we haven't figured it out, is because there's nobody forcing these people to create that relationship. You will find out what their obstacles are, what their hurdles are, what their capabilities are, and what they are incapable of doing. And then you will take actions, because now I'm talking to Ethan and says, "Hey, what if we do this?" Well, let's try that. To me, that is the key. Getting people to recognize, and this is part of the problem, because they haven't recognized it yet, or at least I am not aware of it, is that the offices of emergency management at all levels is the entity, or are the entities, to be responsible for bringing those people together to figure it out. And as we move forward, we're going to find what's needed. We're going to find it out. It's going to become very apparent what's needed.
One group is going to go to the other and go, I never knew you didn't have this available to you, or I didn't know you couldn't do this. I didn't know this was an obstacle for you. Here's how I can help.
Here's it. And what is the number one failure in everything that we do?
Communication.
What is communication? I didn't have this piece of information. Why did you do this? Well, this happened. Why didn't I know about it? Well, because, right? We're going to go down that path.
Yep.
As a company. We're going to figure that out. But it does us no good if we're not sharing it with everyone who needs it. Plain and simple. And when we sit there and we start figuring this out, somebody's going to say, "How do I get that?"
Yeah. Hey, me too.
Hey, I want it. I want to be able to do that. Can I do that? The answer to that should be yes.
Yes.
Or if there's a legal reason, no. Yep. If there's a legal reason you can't have it, then we can talk about that too.
Sure. Yeah.
Right? Because there's a lot of justifications for stuff that are typically against the law. As long as you have a legal justification for it, you can, right? Use of force is an example of that, right? So I think that's where we need to start moving for, is looking at these emergency managers. I think we should figure out who they are, tap them on the shoulder and say, "Let's talk. Let's figure this out. What do we need?" And I've always come at a problem, and I've always told my people, if you come to me with a problem, come to me with a solution. And
good mindset to have.
I don't want you to come to me with the solution being, "I need more money and I need more deputies." If your solution requires money, I can figure that out. But don't come and say, "I just need 10 grand," and not tell me how you're solving that problem.
Yeah.
Right? And don't say, "I need more deputies," because I can't produce more deputies tomorrow. And here's the other reason I don't want money involved and I don't want personnel involved. Because if you solve a problem absent money and personnel, because those are easy, just give me more people, give me more money. Okay, here. We'll see how that's working in many areas of our country right now. I just need more money. Just give me more money. It's not working. You know why? Because they haven't solved the problem and then tried to say, I need money to help with this solution. They just start throwing money at it. And that's why we're seeing fraud run rampant. That's why we're seeing all these entitled people, is because somebody said, what's the problem? I don't have enough money. Oh, here's money. Right? Look at COVID. Look at how much money people were given, and there was no checks and balances. There was no real solution, right? And I'm not trying to get political. What are the two top excuses why schools don't do what we expect them to do?
Time and money. I can't give you any more hours in the day. I cannot produce that.
And how obviously I can't.
How you're using it is up to you.
That's right. And I can't give you more money.
Yeah.
Even if you say I can't buy Crisis Go, are you doing everything in your power to do everything else that doesn't require money?
Yeah, going and talking to your other community partners doesn't really require any more money. Just to pick up a phone and talk to somebody, right?
Right? Or just say, I'm going to have a drill today.
Yeah.
Right? Let's do a drill. Let's train somebody. Let's do this.
It's really an investment, because if you take a little bit of time and you include them, it's going to save you a heck of a lot of time when the time comes. I know I said time a lot there, but
the point being is if you come to me with a solution that doesn't require time and money, then I can get behind that. If your solution, and you've thought of everything else, and your solution requires time and or money, then at least I know you've done everything else to try to solve this problem first. Right? And now I know what to fight for. I know what that money is. I'm not just saying, oh yeah, I need $12 billion.
For what?
To solve this problem. Okay. What are you going to do with it? Spend it.
Yeah. Money.
On what?
Money in and of itself doesn't solve anything. It's how it's used.
It's how it's used, and to what extent, and how does it impact a desired solution, right? All right. So that's where we're going to go. That's where we're headed in the near future, is we're going to figure out how we educate our emergency managers. So we need to get them working. We need to mobilize them.
I'm calling all those emergency managers.
That's right.
Get them listening to the podcast.
Hey,
send them all to Kelly. You're going to have a line of people at your door next week.
Maybe. We'll see. All right. That's their role. Getting those people to the table and working through the problem. That's their role. Figuring it out.
If you enjoyed today's episode, please like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. And if you have any questions about what we discussed, leave a comment on our website at crisisgo.com. Thank you for joining us today, and we'll see you next time on Coffee with Kelly, a discussion on school safety.